So you can see this is his chart. Now, I'll be honest, I don't normally look at charts of people as young as Jagu. So he's born in 2014. So he's 9 years old, bless his little socks. Now, it's an interesting one because, you know, he's born under the sign of Aquarius. And his moon is in the sign of Taurus and his ascendant is in the sign of Taurus. Now, the thing that I've observed having 3 small children who are still actually quite small, I've got an 11-year-old, a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old, is that I think people grow into their star signs. You know, kids for a really long time, they're in their bodies, aren't they? They're born into their bodies and their unique personalities. Like I always think personalities are these things that are cultivated based on what we're learning. You know, it's like our ego, it's like our mask that we put on, and they get cultivated based on the things that we're winning in life and the things that we might have to concede. And so I think our personalities are slightly contrived at times, and the sun is the, you know, the thing that really shows us our personality. But the ascendant really shows us the body and how we are in our body, and the moon really shows us our feelings and our emotions when we're not editing ourselves or censoring ourselves. So I often feel that small children really show their moon sign early on, more so than their sun sign, and then as they get older they seem to really show you know, their sun. It kind of comes out, you know, it's how they sort of make sense of their feelings within their bodies. And so what I notice about Jagu's chart is his ascendant and his moon are in the sign of Taurus. And the first house here, this area here, is all about his body and all about how he moves in his body. Now, he's 9 years old. So I always think that around about 6, 7, you know, 7's a particularly strong time psychologically for children. You know, there's all sorts of psychological theories about it, but from an astrological perspective, in 7 years, Uranus will have moved 30 degrees. You know, it like every 7 years, it moves approximately one sign. So that's quite significant. That gives him a new need for independence. You know, Uranus is very much about independence, originality, being different. And so, you know, as Uranus has moved 30 degrees around the age of 7, we usually start to show that we don't need to be around our parents so much. And we start to get more social, come out of the family a little bit more. And you'll notice a similar thing happens at 14 and 21. You know, we're always moving further away from our safety. Also, that's significant around the age of 7 is Saturn, which is here in his chart, essentially goes around a quarter of the chart. Now, you can just see it's moved on a little bit since then because he's 9 now and Saturn is quite a slow moving planet. But, you know, he's done just over a quarter. So, you know, that figures. There's also something called the progressed moon. And by the time he's 7, that has also moved a certain period, you know, a certain distance. And so this is really showing that around the age of 7, there's some significant shifts. So if I was to read his chart, which is what I'm going to do, is I do pay more attention to this area here, the more instinctive side, but I'm also noticing now that he's starting to show some of his sun. So let's kind of dive in. Now, also, as I'm diving in, something else that I always focus on is anything that is going over one of these angles, because these angles are like the orientation, and it shows our north, south, east, and west, like the directions we're moving in. And instantly I can see he's got an outer planet going over his ascendant, showing a certain amount of disruption going on and a real need for independence right now. Now, the great news is if you have something like Uranus going over your ascendant when you're quite young, you might not be quite so conscious of sort of big change going on around you. And usually that big change is coming to you through your parents, not so much that you've lost something in life or, you know, through your own incompetence or through your own volition or through your own choices. So, you know, Uranus going over this point, if you're an adult, is a lot more striking. But suffice to say, he is going through quite a big shift. And this shift has really taken place. It's really come on in this last year. Now, in terms of his personality, with Taurus rising and Taurus moon, that really gives him a need for stability, a desire for stability. He wears his emotions on his sleeve. He is a really sort of, I would say, a cuddly boy, especially early on. You know, he's a very sort of like cuddly, very attentive. You really know how he's feeling, and he really, like, if you're paying him attention and he feels safe, he's going to really open up to you. He's a very sort of open and charming little boy. He's probably also quite good looking. He's probably also got quite a good appetite, given that you know, Taurus is very much known for having a good appetite, and it's on his first house. Now, Venus is his ruler, and his Venus up here in the 8th house is in a conjunction with Pluto. So to me, that's straight away showing he has very strong, intense emotions. Quite possibly early on, it might show up as like a psychic intuition or an extreme sensitivity, an extreme sort of appreciation of all things that move him. So he might get very stirred by dramatic music and colors and sound and senses and things like that. I think the 8th house is very receptive to the senses, especially in a small child. And of course, Venus is ruling his first house, so he's very, very sensory. His moon is in opposition to Saturn, which is really interesting. And it's interesting to me also that right now he's got Uranus going over his ascendant. It's in opposition to Saturn and also coming into a conjunction to the moon. To me, that's indicating that there's some changes at home. Mainly like in astrology, and when we're looking at archetypes within a personality, we often look at the moon, and it represents our inner child, and what our inner child needs. The sun represents what the adult side of you, like the sort of adult persona, needs. And then Saturn looks at what we might get from parents and also how we might parent. And, you know, there's this theory that within our fully formed selves, we have like a childlike self, an adult-like self, and a parental-like self. And I'm guessing those styles will come up as he gets older. And I think it's called transactional analysis. And in astrology, you can do the same with the moon, the sun, and Saturn. And what I noticed with all three of these is these styles are all fighting against each other. Now, also in astrology, you can look at Ceres. I haven't got Ceres in this chart, but Ceres and the moon to represent the mum, and then Saturn and the sun to represent the dad. And to me, it feels like he's getting very, very different styles from both parents. And so it almost feels like the parents are maybe not very cohesive in the way, maybe they are imparting very different information to him, and that he's trying to marry these two styles together and integrate those two styles. And one of his challenges, what's showing up here is that the stronger parent, whether that's the male or the female parent, who knows, the one that's more outer facing is a little bit more philosophical, a little bit more possibly like remote, like they might go away and come back. They might go on little tours, or they might have a job that sort of takes them outside of the family home. To me, it looks like there's one parent that is kind of very much outside of the experience, and the role of that parent is to bring in everything that is not from that environment into his life. So he's expanding, that's why he's got a parent like that. And then he's got another parent that's really there, that is really the heart, and that he really understands. And then from this, there is also and I don't know if he's constructing this for himself, or if he needs it, because children with an Aquarius sun often want a lot of freedom, and so early on they often come across quite a lot of no, that's not safe. Slow down and all that. So there's also this very strong Saturn influence that's showing up on his descendant, which is showing up that that through life he has got a perception that people that come into his life are there to give him stability, and sometimes to parent him, sometimes to show him, look, that's not responsible. I need to look, this is what's responsible. This is what's the right thing to do. This is, how it is. So what's likely is early on he's going to learn a lot about the world, what to be fearful of, what not, through quite a strong parental force. Or just through everyone that he's meeting. It's almost like he's, and he won't be showing this already because not all kids do, and responsibility tends to come as we get older. But what I see is that he's projecting onto everyone else around him the safety, the mechanisms of control, the mechanisms of rules and regulations and boundaries and things like that. And so with his moon very much in his first house, he wants to be showing himself as this emotionally articulate boy who can connect with people easily and effortlessly, who can charm with people. And he's almost projecting anything that he doesn't like, that doesn't seem charming and easygoing and cuddly and friendly. Anything he doesn't like, he's like putting it over their head. So by comparison, everyone, because he's so nice, everyone looks kind of slightly authoritarian. So one thing I would absolutely advise when you're raising him is to show him where he has his own power, so that it doesn't become a psychological issue. We all get issues, and seeing the sort of transactional analysis side of it, he could create it. He could create his worldview to keep himself as the nice, easygoing, colourful, creative, sensitive being who gets on with people, and that everyone outside of him is somehow limiting him. So I think it's really important to help him see where his limits are, but to get him to decide them himself. And he's at a really good age to get that going. Even if you were to like his parents, if they were to offer him what would you like to choose, and give him two choices of things you're happy for him to do, because if he's getting into the habit of choosing, he'll start to realize consequences for himself. So many parents, we all do it. I do it myself with my own children. I'm saying, okay, here's dinner, or here's this. Right, now we're going to do this. Not necessarily teaching choice, but I think it's really important for him to teach him that he is a chooser, even at the age of 9, so that he gets to really feel the impact of being responsible for himself and taking responsibility for the things that don't work out so well. And I think that would be really useful. Now, where I want to really leave this is he has got some really strong talents. So he's born with Mercury retrograde, which is interesting. He's an independent thinker. He's also got Neptune in a conjunction with that. So he's very, very dreamy. So all those things I was saying about him being multisensory, and feeling things in a very intense way, I would say he's probably got a completely different way of using words. He may even have almost like another way of communicating. I would say he's probably deeply intuitive, probably connects very easily with animals and plants and energies around him. And he's also got a conjunction between Mercury retrograde and Neptune and Chiron together. So it's like he's born to feel. He's like an empath, a little living sponge. And of course, all kids are living sponges, but he really has it. And this is another reason why I think it would be very beneficial for him to get into the habit of having choice, because I've noticed, and I'm a bit of one myself, where we're an empath, empaths often pick up on so many different styles of ways of being, and they don't realize what their style is. They're so sensitive and picking up on everything, and it's very, very difficult to be very clear about what is his and what is not his. So another good practice, I would say, is be playful with him at the end of every day or at the beginning of every morning, and say to him something to the effect of, okay, Jago, let's get all of you back in. Imagine for a minute that all those little parts of you from yesterday, when you were doing this over there and doing that over there, and when you had that conversation over there, imagine all those parts of you coming back into your body. Feel yourself. And then say, okay, Jago, imagine everything that you took on for everybody else. So when you saw me a bit sensitive yesterday and you might have had a reaction, I want you to imagine giving everything that's not you, but in your body, back. And you could color code it. You could have smells or anything, use the senses and get him to get used to the feeling of what it is to be completely Jago, and to let go of everything that is not him. And if you can incorporate it into some kind of game, even if it becomes a family culture, I think that would be really beneficial. And I also think that would really help him in using his creativity for the things that he's interested in doing. And he'll know when he's doing something to please people as opposed to pleasing himself. So I hope these little hints and tips and things like that are very, very useful. He's definitely got lots and lots of talent. I could probably talk about him for quite some time. So anyway, I'm going to let that go for a moment. And let's just see if we've got some more comments coming in.